the moment Harry reportedly discovered that King Charles had quietly handed several of his former patronages to a rising young royal. Something inside the Sussex camp allegedly shattered completely, because this was never just about titles, never just about ribbons, ceremonies, or royal appearances. This was about relevance. This was about status. This was about the terrifying realization that the monarchy had finally learned how to function without him. And according to palace whispers spreading through London's elite circles, the replacement did not just happen quietly. It happened fast, brutally fast. So fast that even senior insiders were stunned by how quickly Harry's old space inside the institution began filling itself without resistance, without hesitation, and worst of all for Harry, without the public even noticing the transition at first. For years, Harry believed he was untouchable inside the royal structure. Even after the Oprah interview, even after Netflix, even after Spare, there was always this invisible assumption hanging in the air that eventually the monarchy would need him back, that eventually Charles would soften, that eventually William would have no choice but to tolerate him again because Harry brought global attention, media excitement, and youth appeal the institution supposedly could not replace. But according to insiders now speaking more freely than ever before, something changed permanently after 2025. The palace stopped discussing reconciliation and started discussing continuity. That word has reportedly become everything behind closed doors. Continuity, stability, predictability, loyalty, the exact opposite of chaos. And in palace language, chaos now allegedly has a face. The breaking point reportedly came after a series of humiliating public disasters surrounding the Sussex brand. The failed projects, the endless accusations, the interviews that kept reopening family wounds long after the public had grown exhausted by them. But insiders claim the deepest anger inside the palace was not even directed at Meghan. It was directed at Harry himself, because according to one former court source, Charles could allegedly tolerate attacks from outsiders. What he could never emotionally process was watching his own son repeatedly profit from royal destruction while simultaneously demanding royal privileges remain available whenever convenient. And when that realization finally settled inside the king's circle, discussions quietly began about redistributing some of Harry's former charitable influence permanently. Now here is where this story becomes genuinely explosive, because the young royal reportedly benefiting from this shift is not William, not George, not even Princess Charlotte. According to rumors spreading aggressively through royal media circles, the palace has allegedly started positioning James, Earl of Wessex, as the monarchy's next dependable modern figure. Quiet, disciplined, non-controversial, no Netflix cameras, no podcast grievances, no memoir-threatening family exposure, just duty, just appearances, just consistency. And palace insiders reportedly believe the public response has shocked everyone inside Buckingham Palace itself, because people like him. That is the part nobody in Montecito allegedly expected. The comparisons to Harry have reportedly become impossible to ignore inside royal circles. James appears calm where Harry became reactive, reserved where Harry became explosive, private where Harry monetized intimacy. And according to multiple whispers now circulating among royal commentators, Charles has allegedly become deeply impressed with how naturally James handles formal royal environments despite his young age. One insider even claimed Charles privately described him as refreshingly steady, a phrase that has now triggered panic among Sussex supporters online because of what it symbolically implies. And then came the patronage rumors. According to speculation erupting across British tabloids and elite royal gossip circles, several institutions once emotionally connected to Harry have quietly begun building stronger relationships with younger working royals connected to Edward and Sophie's side of the family. Officially, nothing dramatic has been announced publicly, but privately, palace staff reportedly understand exactly what is happening. The monarchy is preparing for a future where Harry's return is no longer part of the equation. The reaction in Montecito, according to gossip spreading through entertainment circles, was allegedly volcanic. Meghan reportedly viewed the shift as deeply humiliating because the Sussex strategy for years depended on the belief that Harry remained irreplaceable inside the royal system. That belief gave them leverage. It gave them headlines. It gave them bargaining power. But if the palace truly found younger figures capable of absorbing Harry's former public role without controversy attached to them, the entire Sussex brand suddenly loses one of its last remaining advantages. Because once the monarchy emotionally detaches from Harry completely, the royal connection becomes weaker commercially too. And Hollywood notices weakness immediately. That is reportedly why the timing of this alleged patronage reshuffle has caused such panic behind the scenes. Because the Sussexes are already battling growing growing reputation fatigue in both America and Britain. The royal rebellion narrative that once felt shocking and fresh now reportedly feels repetitive to audiences. Meanwhile, the palace has quietly repositioned itself as calm, silent, stable, and unmoved. That contrast is devastating. One side appears constantly angry. The other side appears patient enough to simply wait for the storm to burn itself out naturally. And according to insiders, William has been watching this transition very carefully, because this is not only Charles's strategy anymore. This is the future king's strategy too. Sources now claim William has become increasingly supportive of elevating younger royals who understand discipline over celebrity. Not because he wants revenge on Harry, but because he allegedly sees what the last 5 years did to the monarchy's image internationally. Endless drama, endless leaks, endless emotional warfare. And palace insiders reportedly believe William has no interest in carrying that instability into his own reign someday, which means figures like James suddenly become incredibly important institutionally. Safe hands, reliable faces, people who will not turn private conversations into global documentaries 6 months later. What reportedly pushed Harry into full fury, however, was not the quiet rise of James alone. It was the growing realization that some of the organizations and royal circles once emotionally tied to Harry were no longer waiting for him anymore. According to palace chatter now leaking deeper into British media networks, several charities and ceremonial institutions had allegedly grown exhausted by uncertainty surrounding the Sussex situation, the constant controversies, the endless transatlantic drama, the fear that any future collaboration could suddenly become part of another interview, another memoir chapter, another indirect public attack on the monarchy. And institutions connected to the crown hate instability more than anything. They can survive scandals, they can survive criticism, but unpredictability, that terrifies them. This is why insiders claim Charles's inner circle began quietly encouraging younger royals to appear more publicly in spaces Harry once dominated emotionally, especially military-related appearances, youth outreach programs, and Commonwealth-focused events where Harry had historically been one of the strongest public performers in the family. And the reaction reportedly stunned even senior palace aides because instead of backlash, the public simply adjusted almost immediately. There was no collapse, no massive outrage, no desperate national demand for Harry's return. The institution kept moving. The calendar kept filling. The royal machinery continued operating exactly the way it always had for centuries, coldly, efficiently, relentlessly. And according to some insiders, that psychological realization hit Harry harder than losing Frogmore Cottage ever did, because property can be replaced, security can be argued over, titles can still exist on paper, but irrelevance? That is permanent. Meanwhile, Meghan reportedly became increasingly frustrated behind closed doors because the couple's original strategy allegedly depended on maintaining royal mystique while simultaneously attacking the institution from the outside. It was a dangerous balancing act that worked brilliantly at first. Every accusation increased curiosity. Every interview generated headlines. Every royal complaint fueled streaming numbers and public fascination. But palace insiders reportedly realized something important long before the Sussexes did. Audiences eventually grow tired of permanent conflict when there is no resolution attached to it, especially when the monarchy itself refuses to publicly fight back. That silence became Charles' greatest weapon, and it reportedly drove Harry insane, because according to royal commentators now discussing the shift openly, Charles stopped emotionally reacting in public altogether. No counterattacks, no emotional interviews, no visible anger, just distance, just schedules, just gradual removal. And insiders claim that strategy was intentional from the very beginning. One palace source allegedly described it perfectly by saying, "The monarchy survives by outlasting storms, not chasing them." While Harry and Meghan continued operating like modern celebrities trapped in constant reputation management, the palace simply waited for exhaustion to set in publicly, and eventually it did. Now the emotional center of this entire story reportedly revolves around one devastating private moment that has never been officially confirmed but continues spreading aggressively through royal gossip circles. According to whispers from former palace-connected figures, Harry allegedly attempted to reopen discussions about rebuilding limited royal cooperation after several commercial setbacks began mounting in America. Nothing dramatic, nothing public, just quiet conversations through intermediaries testing whether some level of institutional healing remained possible. But by that point, according to insiders, the palace had already emotionally shifted into succession planning mode around younger stable figures, including James. And this is where the contrast becomes almost cruel, because while Harry spent recent years fighting publicly against the institution, James reportedly spent those same years learning how to survive inside it quietly. No complaints, no dramatic interviews, no attempts to become globally famous, just patience. And Monarchy insiders allegedly love patience above almost every other royal quality, because patience signals loyalty. Patience signals discipline. Patience means someone understands the institution is bigger than personal feelings. Harry once understood that too. That is the tragic part many royal watchers still cannot fully process emotionally. Harry was once considered the monarchy's greatest natural communicator after Diana. Funny, charismatic, fearless with crowds. Human in ways William sometimes struggled to appear publicly. There was a time palace staff genuinely believed Harry would become one of the most valuable modern royals in generations, which is exactly why this alleged replacement narrative feels so emotionally explosive now. Because people are not watching an outsider lose royal access. They are watching someone who once stood at the very center of the monarchy slowly realize the institution learned how to emotionally detach from him piece by piece. First came reduced appearances, then the loss of working royal status, then Frogmore, then the silence from Charles during American visits, then younger royals quietly absorbing more public attention, then reports of patronages drifting elsewhere. Each step looks small individually. Together, they form a devastating picture. What makes this situation even more brutal is that the monarchy allegedly no longer sees the Sussexes as an immediate threat. That phase has reportedly ended internally. According to royal commentators close to palace culture, the institution now views Harry and Meghan more like a completed chapter than an active crisis. That psychological shift changes everything because urgency disappears once fear disappears. The palace is no longer reacting emotionally, it is reorganizing calmly. And once royal systems become calm again, they become incredibly difficult to disrupt because sources claim William has become deeply protective of shielding the younger generation from repeating Harry's path. George, Charlotte, Louis, James, Louise. The future structure reportedly revolves around stability, privacy, and controlled public duty rather than celebrity-style overexposure. Insiders say William watched the media wars destroy trust inside the family and has absolutely no intention of allowing similar instability to infect the next generation, which means the rise of quieter royals is not accidental anymore, it is strategic. And somewhere inside Montecito, according to royal gossip now exploding online, Harry allegedly understands the deeper humiliation underneath all of this. The palace did not collapse after he left. The monarchy did not beg for reconciliation publicly. The public eventually stopped treating every Sussex revelation like a global earthquake. Worse than that, younger royals started generating positive attention simply by remaining silent and doing the work. And that is the one thing no Hollywood strategy can easily compete against because silence creates mystery, and mystery keeps monarchy alive.